Well, welcome. This month's holistic health for chronic illness, and we're kind of covering kids. So that was kind of the subject. Chronic illness can be, at any age, and so just kind of keeping that kind of an emphasis. So I wanted to share with you something that I have found through the years that had so much value in helping um, get people's health back on track and also keeping them healthy so that maybe it doesn't get off on track. Um, and it's a proven system that really is amazing in helping people that are at any age. I kind of specialize in doing women from age 40 to 60, discovering the root cause of their health issues. But like I said, it can be I started working out on kids and pets, and I've given a presentation that said, yeah, I've even tested plants and finding out, what kind of nutrients they want. And so, yeah, it can be used in many different ways. So I've worked on horses and birds and dogs and cats, and um, I don't think I've done a fish yet, but so, but yeah. Um, but yeah, it's just anything that has energy. And I've even worked on when people lose something, it's like, well, where did I lose it? And sometimes we can't test the object because it's not alive, but we can test when were you near that object. And so sometimes that is helpful for being able to find it. Um, so I am recording this, and so that we have a replay for people that want to watch it. And so if you are watching the replay, drop a comment, a like, share it, and so that we get the word out of this great modality that helps you identify what is that root cause of your health issue by helping you clear toxins and pathogens and traumas that are impacting your health and impacting any anti-aging. And I also share anti-aging techniques that can help your body thrive. So because we're doing emphasis of kids, I thought I'd use some examples of kids. And so when I gave birth to my son, and like right around that time where there were some cute videos on TV where you'd have the kids sitting in a high chair with eating, and so the parents would put all the little Cheerios in a line, and then the kid would pick one up and eat it, and it was cute and fun, and I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. And his aunt even bought him like a book that where you could put different Cheerios, and like the three reindeers had, Cheerios or a wreath, or, and so you could use Cheerios with that book for illustration and counting from 1 to 9 or whatever. Um, so, gave my son, Cheerios, and he would, or within a little while, he would be on the floor, rolling around, screaming in pain. And I'm like, okay, that's not the vision I had when I gave him I gave him the Cheerios. It's not what I was expecting. Um, and so it really made us realize, okay, there's something going on with him and his digestive system, and not allowing him to, eat. And so, that kind of food. And so, what's in Cheerios? Well, it's, oats. I I used to love Life cereal, but it didn't like agree with me. And my mom would always, give me like oatmeal, and it's just like it just didn't do well for me. So he was a little bit sensitive on oats. Cheerios is one of the known products that has the most glyphosate in it. And so it's just like it's one of the top. If you look at any list, they're always listing Cheerios as one of the big ones. So yeah, glyphosate is something that they spray on crops so that when they go to harvest them, the wheat gets to a certain place, they spray the crops, it dies, they can go and harvest it, and they can plant the field again so they can get two crops in one season. And so that's why they do it. But it unfortunately it gets in your own food and in your own gut, and then can cause a tremendous amount of issues. And so that's what he was responding to, is not only the gluten in the oats, but he was also responding to the chemicals that were in the oats that are part of that. Um, so we had to learn how do we help this kid get better. Um, and not only would it impact his digestive system so that he had a very round belly and he wasn't eliminating very well. And it kind of showed almost like a lack of nutrients or a digestion or a lack of absorption. Um, and it also, he wasn't eliminating very well. So he dealt with a lot of constipation. So we had to learn how to we get the bowels to all move to move that through. Um, but then it also would impact because of all that stuff stuck in him, it would impact his neurotransmitters. And so those are things are dopamine, serotonin, um, melatonin, which helps you sleep. And so he wasn't sleeping very well. He was crying a lot. He was very irritated. Sometimes not having good neurotransmitters will knock out how much you're hungry, or if you're ravenous hungry, it can go both ways. So there's just all of his neurotransmitters were off. And so he would kind of go into fits and had lots of tantrums and things like that. So I always had to put back on his neurotransmitters. So learned a lot, in the 19 years I've been doing quantum techniques of how to help that whole digestive system, how to help find out, why we have symptoms and what we can do about it. So that's just kind of my story of kind of one of the things that I dealt with kids. And I always watch parents, give kids, those little like goldfish, and it's like, ooh, this have so much, dyes and bad stuff. So it's really, and luckily now when you go to the grocery store, there's so much more available than there used to be. I mean, I just remember when we first tried to do all rice products, and then so we had rice crackers, rice, what do you call them? The rice cakes. Used to eat that with butter all the time. We have the bread, we would get him. He liked mayonnaise, so he'd take like this rice bread that was kind of just not very tasteful, and he put mayonnaise over it. So he, got food, but it was, not very, nutritious. And now you can have, rice pasta, rice chips, rice crackers, rice, just pretty much everything. Which I always laugh because he didn't like rice itself. He's never eaten just rice, but he's now gotten into sushi, so I guess he's eating rice. So, um, so anyway, so that's kind of my story. Um, but I was always determined to figure out, okay, well, why is he responding this way? What steps do I need to take to get his health back? And as I was wanting to be healthy myself. And so that's how I discovered, I've been on this journey to find out, what is, or how do we get our health back? Why do people respond with their health the way they do, and find out what it is. Um, so it is my mission to help people, understand why they're having health symptoms and what they can do about it. Um, and it's finding out what toxins and pathogens are impacting the system. And then we have a way of clearing them in an instant to transform your health. So the topics that we're wanting to kind of talk about today is, what is driving the chronic illness epidemic in kids? And I think I've kind of touched on a little bit, the things that we feed kids like gold crackers and Cheerios and, you know, it's summer. So you think about those pops that are all, like just frozen fluid, and they're bright blue and red and green, and all those are food dyes. And so those can really affect us. And I was kind of surprised because we did no gluten and we did no dairy, how much when you do that, you knock off the whole dye. So we never had to deal with a dye issue because I wasn't even feeding him the foods that had that in it. I can't even say he's ever had a Fruit Loop, to be honest. But you just think about all the things that are typically those dyes are in are all the foods that we, really don't eat and didn't eat because of no gluten and no dairy. So yes, food is a major part of that, and that's why RFK Jr. is really working at trying to get those dyes and those pesticides out of our foods in order to help us all be better. So I would say foods is the main thing that's driving that, and it's behavior issues. And they really do find that when you get rid of those foods that are driving some of those behaviors, the neurotransmitters get better, and then you don't have the ADHD, the HD, the hyperactivity. You have more of a calm brain and things like that. And so those are things that are adding to that chronic issue. So simple and practical ways to protect your child from uh, using clean food, rest, and light. And I was kind of amazed when 2020, hit and the kids were inside, having to do their studying. I found that my son, kind of, yes, we were at home and we were still playing and stuff like that, and we would have like recess and stuff like that outside, but there was a lot more time spent inside, and his hair actually went from being blonde to being more of a dirty blonde, or I wouldn't say really brown, but it definitely changed from being, more light like mine is to being darker. And that's part of sunlight. Sunlight kind of gives us that vitamin D that we need, and it helps us with our immune system. And so getting kids outside really helps. And we need to do it ourselves. And so they always say, make sure that you go out in the morning, and the circadian rhythms of how, you wake up with the light and you go to bed with the light. And sometimes in our world that's hard, but just being aware to get outside, look at the sky. There's a lot of therapy that's talked about where you need to make sure you look at all the colors of the spectrum. Look at the blues, the reds, the greens, the yellows, and the browns, and look at that full spectrum so that you're hitting the retina and your brain and all with all those colors. And it's called color therapy. And so sometimes people have you wear certain glasses if you're deficient in something so that they can get that part of your brain kind of like turned on or back on track. So light is very, very important. Rest. There's lots of books written on how to get kids to sleep. And some are more painful than others, letting the kids cry it out and things like that. But being aware that kids need a lot more sleep than you need. And so tracking their sleep and figuring out how to get them to sleep. And one thing that I found is not only is a blood sugar issue, so you make sure they have, protein when they wake up within 30 minutes. Now there's a thought process that you need to have 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking. And I've been trying to do that a little bit more. And I have noticed that I have a lot more energy sustained throughout the day when I do that. So, so I think that's important. So not just have a little bit of protein, but have at least, if you can, get 30 grams. And then if you have a hard time sleeping through the night, maybe have a little bit of protein before you go to bed. They talk about a window of having 2 hours of no food before you sleep, but having just a little bit of, a handful of nuts, a scoop of almond butter, something that's kind of a pure protein, like um, sunflower seeds, things like that are going to be, will help you kind of bridge that whole gap at night of not having, anything to eat, and so that your blood sugar doesn't dip. So that's something that you can do with kids too, is to make sure that they have that protein beginning of the day and at the end of the day to kind of help bridge that gap. One of the biggest things I found with sleep is the fact that they have inhalants in their room, or they're wearing them or on the sheets that are impacting their sleep field. And so the ability to find out, what substances are toxic is very important. And, laundry detergent and dryer sheets are the two biggest ones. So you need to make sure that you're not using a chemical that is impacting, or in their laundry detergent that impacting them. So for example, my own child, we washed everything in all detergent, which is a natural clean, they said on the outside. So I washed everything, was ready, gave birth, and then he started reacting to my hairspray. So I had to get rid of my hairspray. And so, but then he was always like spitting up. And so we had all these onesies, and we actually bought him a bib that you would normally wear as a 1-year-old trying to learn how to eat. And we had him wear that over the onesie because he spit up all the time. And so it's like, well, I have all these cute clothes, but I can't even put them in it because he just ruins them all. And so as we started testing, we found, okay, yes, he was being toxed by that detergent. So I made the decision to wash everything in the whole house, all bedding, towels, clothing, in OxyClean or borax, which are the two that most people don't react to. There's a couple others also. And I washed everything, and he literally stopped spitting up overnight. It's so much so that I know it was January 19. That's how much of an impression it made on my life, because he became a normal kid again. And so I was able to test using the muscle testing that we do and find out why. I mean, I couldn't smell it. What was his? And it was like him smelling diesel fuel every single day with that being on him. So it's really important that we find out what is his bed, what's in his bedding. Making sure that his room, that there's no mold, making sure that pillows, toys, are washed and don't have that plastic smell or anything like that. So just being aware of in his environment, what he's sleeping on, what's in his room is okay. Being aware of not having pocket packing boxes or magazines or comic books or things that have more of a smell or an odor to them from the ink is also important. Making sure that if he has old books that grandma have given him, that they don't have mold, or that you can mitigate them through an ozone machine, or wrap. What I did is I wrapped them in plastic, so they would still sit on a shelf, but they were in a plastic bag so that you could see it, but they weren't getting mold into his environment. So those are just some things you can do to help him have a better night's sleep, um, in order to have better health. Because when they sleep better, they're happier. All right. So we talked about clean food, how to get good rest, and then having sunlight, because that really does help the vitamin D and help the immune system be able to function and do better. Right. So the third topic that I was kind of talking about is how to reduce a toxic exposure and to boost resilience in the home. So I've kind of talked a little bit about that in what to test, both an inhalant, maybe a contactant, because all the things I just mentioned could also be a contactant, and so it could create, like a rash or something like that. So if there is any kind of rash, like let's say diaper rash, what kind of chemicals are on the wipes that you're using? A lot of times, at least where I was, because it was cold, you had to have a warmer for um, the wipes. Well, sometimes you get too much moisture and they start getting mold, and so then that would cause a diaper rash. So just being aware of where could that toxin be coming from, and is it what is it touching, the skin and things like that. And laundry detergent will create rashes and things like that on the body, or a histamine response, redness, if it's too much of an inhalant for them. So finding out what the exposures are: inhalants, contactants, ingestants, um, injectants. I had a client that he particularly would get a lot of bites, and then they would just be like these welts on his skin. And so we were trying to find out, why did his body have such a histamine response to those particular bites? And now I know a lot more about how to clear that and why. And so, like, if you get a bite, sometimes it can come in with something. So it could come in with a bite with 5 bacterias, or maybe a virus, or and that could be alive, and then that's a lot of times. So if I find, if I get it injected and it comes in with a bacteria, it itches. Well, if it doesn't itch. Yeah, it's a bump there, but it's red and it's something, but it will go away. So and then there's different things that you can help for bites like that, so that they don't itch so much, so you can sleep better. And that's something called neem oil. And there's this Neem Tree Farms, I think it's called, and they have like a anti-itch stick. And so you can put that on your skin and it will stop the itching, which is really nice, essentially, since I'm living in a mosquito area. So that's really good to help with kids, and find out, if they do get bit, maybe there's a histamine response or a mast cell activation that's throwing them into more of a histamine response than normally should be. And so now we know how to back that histamine response off and find out why it's happening. Also, just a side note is, if you have a lot of skin issues on kids, the root cause is the digestive system. And in other words, if your guts are inflamed, then it's going to show up on the next biggest organ in the body. And sure enough, that's the skin, trying to detox all that. So that's why it's important to kind of clear out that ingestion. It talks about talking about resilience in the home. I think you should just also be aware of being able to create a safe environment. And there's a certain family um, blessing that I found to be very helpful for, especially for young kids, that you can read that is kind of putting them in a safe space and a safe environment. And so what I would do is I took this blessing and I read it to a recorder and then I played it while I very, very low, but while I was reading his nighttime stories. And so he could hear that blessing over and over again. And that really helped kind of create a more calm environment for them to go to sleep with. So you can do that with a blessing, a prayer. You know, you could even then do, we also tried music too. There's certain musics you can do that are very calming and soothing. But that all helps the body kind of get into a sleep state or get the child to calm down. So those are all things to help the whole family and home be a more resilient space. So my last point was talking about, what is early prevention and why it matters. And I think my son right now is 18, and unfortunately, he likes Coke a lot more than he should. I never allowed him to have Coke. I know. I never let him have Coke. I would always, if he wanted to have a drink when he went to, let's say, the movies, I'd make him get Fanta because at least it didn't have all the yucky stuff, but it still has, the corn syrup and stuff like that that he would react to. But I just didn't want Coke. So, but you know, he has to learn. So he his first year, I think in high school where that kind of got started, he started breaking out on his skin and on his back. And those are all areas that your skin is trying to detox from the guts being bad. And so he has to live with his consequences. And I think that's the hardest thing as a parent is that you reap what you sow. And if you stand in the way of that reaping, then they're never going to realize, or if you stand in the way of their, reaping. If you always take away the reaping, like in other words, if I coded him every time he had a Coke so he never had a response, then I would not be serving him because then he wouldn't say, hey, cause and effect, cause and effect. I think I'm tired of that effect, so I'm going to stop with the cause. And so it is hard to kind of, as a parent, to step back from that, but you need to have them kind of suffer the consequences of their behaviors so that they will learn. And that's how we all learn how to be better. And so that's a hard thing, but it is important. So just kind of be aware of setting boundaries and things like that really help. So does anybody have any questions before I kind of move on to the next section in regards to anything I covered? And Paula, thanks for showing up today. And Jane, thanks for being here. Or I think it's Jean. Sorry, Jean. All right. So if anybody has any questions, I can cover those now if you've got it.
Okay, you're on.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Can you tell me when you talked about the all detergent, was that before they made free and clear all?
Nope. Same thing. Free and clear all.
Okay.
Yeah. Now everybody's different. Some people won't react to it, some will, but that is not because of my experience. I don't recommend that to usually anybody. Yeah. There's still something in there that, bothered him. A lot of people like to do Arm and Hammer. That's still the same thing. I've found that it doesn't really work on most people.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's funny because you can't trust that they put the same ingredients in every batch, even though the batches are beyond our comprehension, perhaps. There's no guarantee that it's the same product that you started with that was okay. And I
Well,
found
and
that.
the other thing I found is that companies also get sold. And so they get sold to those new, so the name is great, but they're still putting the bad stuff in it. I know that's been an issue for several like probiotics and protein supplements.
Mhm. Well, I know I started using Whole Foods 365 brand, their home brand.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, it would be fine. And I think it was when I initially bought it, but then it changed. And I just couldn't figure out what is wrong. I mean, I cannot stand the pill. I mean, everything's wrong with my clothes and with the sheets and all the towels, all that.
Uh-huh.
And I know the soap changed.
Yeah. No, that's
So
very true.
I have to be on it, I guess.
And unfortunately, the 365, 'cause I use it a lot too. Not that, but in other words, those products from that store. But in all of their baked goods and things like that, they all use the seed oils and yeah.
Yeah,
Which
if
is
you can,
also we didn't talk about, but that's another thing that RFK is going after is the seed oils because it really does impact the digestion and the whole gut and causing issues. So trying to stay away from sunflower oil and safflower oil and those kind of things is really helpful.
yeah, what I found amazingly is like at Aldi. I don't know if you guys have Aldi stores where you
Mhm.
are, but if there's anything from Germany or Italy, they have not contaminated it. Basically, you can trust it.
That is very true.
Good to
Um,
muscle test, of course, but in general, if you're not into muscle testing and all, you can't go wrong if it says it's from Germany or Italy.
Got it. Yeah, we went to Italy a couple of years ago, and yeah, my I mean, or I say Europe, and my son ate pizza the entire time, and never was sick once, you know. So, yeah, it's so different over there, and I do hope eventually we can get our wheat back. It'd be nice. Thanks for sharing. That's really good information. All right. So part of what I do is I help you have find out what those toxins are. And I have a 7-step process that helps identify what those toxins and pathogens are that are causing the chronic illness. Um, and so I've already told you kind of my story, with my kid and what I've had to deal with. Um, and I've had, many different clients with different symptoms that have all been really helped by this kind of modality for the last 19 years. And it helps with pain and for healing fast, digestive issues, sleep issues, lung, bladder infections, colds, flus, uh, traumas, emotional issues, just many different areas that it helps with. And so it's that's why I share it with people because it's just so profound. And I know it will work for you too. And so my issue is wanting you to find out what is the answer to why you're having this health issue. So then figuring out what you can do about it. Take these things away. Maybe this is okay. Add this instead of that. And so you can make more qualified choices of what you're doing. Um, And this healing modality, like I mentioned, is for everybody. It's for pets, it's for, kids, it's for, the elderly, it's for, just everyone. And it does help with that. So what makes our healing modality different from others? Well, it's God-centered. The people in our practice are very, God-centered and we know that, we just have learned through the years what questions to ask, but the healing really comes from Him. And what we do is, like I said, we identify the toxins and pathogens that are creating the symptoms, and we're able to clear it in an instant. So that way, you can get your health back on track. And we always say it's kind of like Jesus said to the centurion in Matthew 8:8, which is, oh, you don't have to, come to my house to heal. You just say the word and I will be healed. And it's that idea that the spoken word can really have a tremendous impact, and to be able to help with that. So I wanted to share, let's see, my son stole my camera. So so I have to be a little bit I have to like lower the camera to be able to get this stuff. So bear with me. Let's see, I want to do chat. Okay. So I wanted to share on chat some of the things that I offer as part of being able to help people with their health. All right. So the first one is that I have created a pathway to wellness class that shares a lot of the same information that I've been sharing, but it's way more in depth. Okay. So I'm going to copy that. See it? There. Paste. All right. So want to share that so that you can kind of see the link that if you want. So what I do is I help. There's 6 areas of areas that are really helpful to make sure. Sorry, 6 areas that are really helpful to help you be able to have better health, and those deal with sleep, exercise, water, air, and food. And when you have kind of find out what are those toxins are impacting those areas, then you really do have an ability to get your health back on track. So let me share this link. Love technology. Okay, so there's the link for that. The other one that okay, so I've got these six, see, one, two, three, four, yeah, five areas that are really important. But I've also taken one of those areas that I just think is really important is after having a child, um, and my son not sleeping very well, I really wanted a good night's sleep. And I found out how much my sleep impacted me if I didn't have it. So I took that specific subject of sleep and I created a course in regards to sleep. And so I'll share this also. Let's see, copy. All right. So that's the second link for the class on sleep. And so it's been very fun to be able to, really share in depth more about the areas that is really important to have health in and specifically sleep and different things you can do and also find out what may be your issue on why you're not having a good night's sleep. And so if you're wanting to learn more about the healing modality that I do, which is quantum techniques, um, you can sign up for a one-on-one 15-minute call with me, and we can kind of explain a little bit more about how we use this to find out not only what symptoms you have now, headaches, digestion, heart palpitations, high blood pressure, whatever those are, but also figure out what's causing them. In other words, we get rid of the symptoms, but why do you keep having them? So it's kind of called lowering your bucket of sensitivity. And so finding out what's making you sensitive to these things. Is it, heavy metals? Is it mold? Is it limes? Is it, um, you know, um, you know, anesthesia? Is it traumas in your childhood? And so we find out what is the root cause below that driving these symptoms. And so that's part of that. So I would love to talk to you more about that in like a 15-minute free Zoom one-on-one to explain more about the modality to see if it's a good fit for you. All right. So getting your body, so we've talked about what kind of causes these symptoms like that. When we find them, it's important for your body to be able to get rid of the toxins and pathogens. And in order to do that, you need to have good detox. And so I have found a product that I found to be very helpful in helping the body detox, and it's redox signaling molecules. And so it helps with that cellular communication. So I'm going to share a video on how it works. Now, in order to make sure that you can hear it, I've got to make sure and click a button. And so hopefully I can find the button. Okay, so bear with me here because I got to move the screens around and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Okay, so nope, it's this one. All right. Um, um, okay, let's see. Okay, so bear with me.
After taking thyroid medication, chances are your doctors miss something that's happening in your body. Is taking thyroid medication actually making your problem worse?
Sorry, that's just
Bodies break down. Your own body, right this minute, is breaking down in one way or another. Even if you feel healthy, the fast-paced lifestyle most of us call normal can lead to major health problems. The reason bodies break down is that over time, cellular communication breaks down. True health means having healthy cellular communication, cells talking to each other. The question is, are you doing your part to keep your cells talking? If you're not sure, you need to hear about a revolutionary product scientifically shown to affect the way our cells communicate. How do our cells know what to say? Genes tell them. This is how your body receives communication for life-sustaining instructions that keep you alive and healthy. ASEA redox keeps cells talking with redox signaling molecules.
ASEA is dedicated to performing the highest quality science in the field. This study was of the highest scientific caliber, utilizing the Torrey Laboratory, which is an expert in genetic testing. What's important and very interesting about this study that's been performed is that the 20 to 31% changes in gene transcription activity, it's a real difference between folks taking saline and those taking the ASEA redox at 8 weeks.
ASEA redox is the first and only supplement on the market scientifically tested and shown to signal the activation of genetic pathways and to affect genes that improve immune system health, help maintain a healthy inflammatory response, help maintain cardiovascular health, improve gut health, and modulate hormone balance. ASEA redox is the breakthrough that interrupts the breakdown. This patented product is the reason that tens of thousands of people have experienced wellness in a way they hadn't before.
I was first introduced to ASEA about 6-7 years ago. I've had some pretty serious health challenges, and I noticed immediately that first night I slept much better, and I woke up refreshed with an energy level that I hadn't felt in quite a while. My last visit with one of my doctors was, I see no reason why you shouldn't live well into your 90s.
There's been so many steps in my life where ASEA has helped with so many different things, and it just consistently has helped my health. It's been really amazing.
I just think it's so important to the whole world to know about ASEA and what it can do for everyone. We just seem to sail through life with, better health than we ever have. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to me.
And so I know it's helped my body to normalize is what it did, I think. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I'm afraid not to take it if you want the truth.
And I went to the doctor to get a physical in December, and my cholesterol numbers are amazing. My triglycerides are so low that my risk factor for heart disease is minimal. I will never not take this product. It gives me goosebumps to talk about it.
Are you done with the breakdown? Reach for the breakthrough. Drinking ASEA redox every day is a simple thing to do to keep your cells talking and allow you to experience the vitality of true health and wellness.
all right. So hopefully that worked. All right. All right. So I have found that product to be very helpful in I was introduced to it as a way to help make sure that everything was detoxing well so that you won't get chronic illness. And so I've used it as a preventative therapy through the years, and I found it to be very, very helpful. They also have the same thing in a gel form, and it's called Renew 28. And so I use that probably more than the actual drink, but I use it when I have any kind of cuts or anything on the skin that needs, or wound that needs to be healed. If I do get a spider bite and it does have bacteria, I will put it on it, and then I will add the DMSO so that will penetrate it and kill it underneath the skin. So there's lots of different ways that you can use the Renew 28. So if you do sign up, and if you're a new client to Quantum Techniques and you sign up for a one-on-one call, I can send you a sample of the Renew 28 because I have like little bottles of it. And I found that to be very helpful. The second thing that I found to be very helpful for regenerative medicine is making sure that you have good stem cells. Now, we naturally lose stem cells as we age. And so it's kind of like at the age of 60, I think we have 40% or something like that left. And so it's important to have stem cells in order to help with, the body to repair itself. And so I have found stem cells to be helpful with lots of different things. And the particular company that does the stem cells has different patches that help with different things. So they have one for pain, they have one for the thyroid, they have one for helping the body energy and balance. They have one for growing stem cells. They have or activating your own stem cells, I should say. They have one for increasing your glutathione. And and they have one for also decreasing inflammation. And so those are all very, very helpful. So I'm going to show or share that video now. So let me get that started. Whoops, hold on. And I'll put right about there.
Light, an ancient form of energy that goes back to the dawn of time. For us, it all begins with the sun, the source of light and life for our entire solar system. Even Einstein concluded that everything we're made of contains light. All life originates with the sun through photosynthesis. Plants and vegetation collect the light, and all living creatures emit light. Humans actually emit infrared light, which can be seen with night vision devices. We've known for centuries that light has many effects on the body. LifeWave's phototherapy patches use light to stimulate the body's natural healing systems, providing specific health benefits. Here's how the technology works. First, a patch is applied to specific points on the body. Where the patch covers the skin, infrared light emitted from the body is reflected back into the tissue. This stimulates the skin, which in turn stimulates specific regions of the brain. The brain then taps into the body's own natural flow of energy and the ability to heal itself. Let's take a look at why this is important on a cellular level. For example, a number of our patch products help counteract free radicals, oxygen molecules that damage cell proteins and contribute to visible signs of aging. When the body is stimulated through phototherapy to release its own antioxidants, these free radicals are neutralized naturally. LifeWave phototherapy patches promote an environment that enables the body to optimize its restorative powers and provide specific health benefits, all without the use of harmful drugs or chemicals, all helping you to stay healthy and young. To find out more, contact your distributor. LifeWave. Live long. Live well.
All right. So that's why I found those to be very, very helpful with activating my own stem cells. I use it a lot with the decreasing the inflammation, which is an Eon patch, and the glutathione, making sure you have good glutathione, which helps with detoxing, heavy metals and chemicals that I come in contact with every day. And I also use the X39 for the stem cells. And it's funny, a couple nights ago, I had ran out of the sleep night patches. And so I got a new set in and I used it for the first time and I started dreaming again. I didn't realize I was not dreaming. And so it's amazing how much it really does help with melatonin, serotonin, and activate that so that you have a good night's restorative sleep, REM sleep, and everything like that. So if you'd like more information, I'm going to put another link where you can check out more information about the that product. Let's see, I'm copying that. Okay. Okay, so that's a great website to learn more, and I can share more information about that. But if you have any kind of pain, things like that, we can use the Ice Wave patch to help with the pain, to be able to help that go away. And I've used it many different times, whether it's back pain or one time I stubbed a toe and I was going to go skiing, and it's like I didn't want my toe to be so hurt that I couldn't ski well. So I wrapped it around the toe, and sure enough, within a day, I didn't have any more pain on it. So it was really helpful. So again, if you sign up with, if you're new to quantum techniques, and if you sign up for a one-on-one session to learn more about the modality, I can send you a patch that is appropriate for one of these symptoms that you have. So that would be helpful too. So the last thing that, well, I should say last thing, but another thing that I do is helping people clear traumas. And I've kind of mentioned traumas, that sometimes traumas do get in the way of our body's ability to heal. And we can get trauma stuck in our body. And I had a great explanation of that. It says, sometimes anxiety, stress, and trauma creates a physical or a non-physical response. The trauma overwhelms the nervous system and its capacity to process the experience. So pieces of that experience are left unprocessed, frozen behind in the body and in the brain. And anytime the flow of energy goes through those areas, the person will experience the trauma symptom again. And that really helps me kind of understand how trauma works. And sometimes I use the example of, if you've been on a road that you had an accident with, sometimes you get on that road again and your hands grip the wheel and you kind of get a little nervous and you kind of start overthinking everything because you remember that trauma that you went through. And so being able to have a sequence to help you let that go is one of the things that we do in quantum techniques. And so I can show you, and I can send you an example of the trauma code. So let me just share my screen again. See, it's hiding. All right. All right, I gotta figure out how to get all these to, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna share, I'm gonna share this one. Nope. Yes, okay. So this is an example of the trauma sequence that we would walk you through, and it's using different acupressure points on the body to help the body to let go of that trauma. And I have something I can send you that shows you how to walk through that. And so we have quite a few videos that I've done in regards to that, but I can send you that sheet or you can take a screenshot of it, either way. But those are the points that will help clear the body of the trauma. And there's a certain way to be able to do that. All right. So if you're here on the call, it's obviously that you do want to do things more holistically. And so that's what quantum techniques does. We're not adding a lot of things to the body. A lot of times, people come to me with their huge lists of herbs and they say, okay, should I be taking all these? And sometimes we find that no, some of them are not helpful, and we can muscle test to find out what those are. And so it reduces the amount of herbs that maybe you have to take, or you find that there may be one herb doesn't go with another. And so you need to take one at breakfast and one at dinner. So you have that time in between. So there's a lot of ways that we can kind of help you have a more holistic approach. Sometimes there may be, scents that you're taking in, or essential herbs or essential oils that actually are not benefiting you, they're hurting you. And so we can find out what those are. We've also tested, some people come to me and have different modalities that they would like to try. And so I find out which ones actually are better benefit for them and not. And that way, you're not wasting money on maybe a modality that won't serve you. But we also, like with chiropractors and massages, we make sure that those treatments are functioning the best for you. And so we're clearing anything that's getting in the way of those treatments working the best for you. So the next step is to sign up for, if you haven't been a quantum techniques client, is to sign up for a one-on-one 15-minute free call, so we can explain a little bit more about how quantum techniques work and how it will work for you. If you've been a client and you haven't been done a session, we have so many more things, so much new things in the last, usually a lot of times we say a year, but I think we kind of each month we're getting a new way of helping the body clear and get better. And so there's a lot of things that we know that I'm just doing now that I'm practicing that I just learned maybe for the last month. And so it's good to check in with quantum techniques. I would say every month or so, because there's new things that I can that we've learned that we help the body be able to clear traumas and generational issues that we haven't been able to clear before. So we're always learning. So it's good to sign up for a one-on-one call so that you can if you have a symptom that's continuing that is not left, that's a good way to do it. Let's see if I can. So let me give you some contact information so we can connect and work together. So I'm going to put my email in the chat so you'll have that. It's Jody at quantumtechniques.com. And there's lots of ways that we can connect. One of the ones that I do the most is that I'm advertise or talk of all of the kind of things that I do on Facebook. So I have a lot of videos on there. I have a lot of information. And so you can join my Facebook group, which is Chronic Illness, Finding the Root Cause. And so I'm going to put that also in the chat so that you can join that group. A lot of the videos that I do share are from my YouTube channel. And so that's Jody Colgrove at the YouTube, so I can post that. Sometimes I have an issue with copy and paste, so I always have to double check to make sure I'm copying, not pasting. Okay, so that's our YouTube channel, or my YouTube channel. So I share a lot of YouTubes on there for years on many different subjects, everything from a more organic way of getting massively red dirt out of white baseball pants for my son. So you're not toxing them with all the different laundry detergents to helping with potty training. I mean, I there's a wide variety in there as I've raised my son through many different phases of life. So you can kind of, look what you're looking for and find, the subject that you're interested in and wanting help on. So we're kind of at almost the top of the hour. I didn't know if you had any more questions that I could help answer as we've kind of walked through everything. Yes.
Are you familiar with the MTHFR gene situation?
I am. And what we're finding lately is that it's because you have too much copper in your system, the heavy metal of copper. And so so one thing to be aware of is that the LifeWave patches help stimulate their own copper peptide. The reason I like them is because it's stimulating them. It's not adding copper to it. So they're okay with that. And so I found that that's good. There's a lot of different herbs and things like that, which say they're helping with MTFR. But I have found that if you have any kind of an herb that has, like you see, sometimes herbs you can have them in a capsule, and others they're like pushed and compressed together. The pressed and things like that, a lot of times have been over baked, and they're usually not as helpful. That's not always the case, but I have found that to be an issue. And so I've researched several of those that are supposed to help, but I have found them not to be helpful.
Do you know if redox is usually okay with MTHFR?
Yeah, I haven't had any problems with that. Yeah. Because they kind of say that, or I should say Steve says it's kind of a stabilized form of a special supplement that is very helpful in some of the things that we use. And so it's a way of using that. At the same time, I've found that if you have a chronic illness, you need to have that special supplement because you need to get rid of what you've got, virus or bacteria right away. But the other is more of a maintenance. that makes sense. But great question, because yeah, the MTFR, we're able to work on that and to help the body not be so sensitive, or to get rid of why generationally that copper is there and stuck in the system. Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you for being here today. And I hope I helped answer all your questions. And the question that we had that I did answer was, someone had asked, what is the relationship between health, rest, and structure for children? I didn't really talk about structure, but talking about having a good bedtime routine, I think, is kind of the structure. So that helps kids know that there's a familiar and if you do the same thing each time, that is a rhythm that they need in their life. And so that's helpful to have. Well, great. Well, thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of Tuesday and the great rest of the week. So thanks, guys. All right. Blessings. Looking forward to working with you.